Hey, it's Alan Ferguson. Thanks for joining me on this episode of Pipeline to Profitability, the podcast for home service professionals. And this podcast is proudly sponsored by Service Success Academy. So today I'm proud to have Karen Hildenbrand-Allery on the podcast. And if I didn't pronounce that right, I'm sure you'll correct me. Karen is the co-founder of Margin Maximizers. Now, the name says it all. Bringing big business smarts to medium business with big goals. Wow. Karen's a highly skilled commercial CFO, emphasis on commercial, with a truckload of broad experience from billion-dollar global businesses, 100 mil private equity-backed greenfield startups, large generational businesses through to small business, which is what I love, Karen has more professional qualifications than you can poke a stick at. I know my followers in the US are going to love this, as well as all our funny talking Australian listeners. Karen loves business and people, and you could say a CFO with a non-traditional twist. So welcome to the podcast, Karen.
Wow, Alan, thank you. You did really well with my name, by the way, so kudos.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, look, it's very exciting to sit down and talk with you. So thank you for inviting me. You and I have a lot of core values with regards to how business and its framework should present itself and how to scale. I've followed you for years, as you know, and we've had kind of quite a long relationship over time, watching each other do different things within trade services industry. And you know, I've had quite a lot of experience with trade services, a whole heap of experiences within the blue collar industries, and so it's a tough game. With some incredibly talented operational people in that blue collar arena, which I include trade services into. Though there's a new world out there for me, from what I'm seeing and have, I don't know, Ellen, maybe about the 5-10 year mark in Australia, there's that real gun professional trade service owner that's out there on a mission. And I guess what I want to talk about today is based on a lot of experience, and I've had a wealth of experience in my career, so I do literally I can bring a lot of flavour into a business that is aiming for that 50 million, 100 million. I know there's trade service businesses out there that are on their way, and they have their eye on that type of growth. And I know certainly you can help any trade service business that has that type of goal. Not going to lie, it's a challenge, but it can be done. I've seen it done. I am supporting businesses in several industries, including trade services, with those goals. And behind me in Margin Maximizers is a fantastic team of commercially based finance people. So I'm the Chief Financial Officer, and I'll, let your listeners know or maybe build out what the benefits are of a CFO in case they don't actually know. And a lot of people don't. A lot of shareholders and businesses don't fully understand what a CFO does. And then next to me is my co-founder, Stina Walkman, and she is a really detailed financial controller. And if need be, we actually have an Australian-based back-end finance team as well. So we can bring a whole experienced commercial team into a business from one day to the next. And it is a really valuable new service. We don't believe there's another framework in Australia that offers us this service, and primarily because the the medium enterprise is quite an unloved area within Australia, because it's what the market's saying at the moment is the medium enterprise in Australia. And when I say medium, anywhere from 10 million up to 60, 70 million generally, because it's such a small percentage, it gets left alone. So the small business area is predominantly the largest percentage of business in Australia. And that's highly serviced by consultants and outsourcing services, where the medium enterprise at the moment doesn't have a pool of relevantly experienced service providers to help them with those big business goals. So what's happening is medium business is gravitating towards chartered accountants with advisory services. And look, I'm not here to bag anyone and their services. There are good services out there for sure, but my take on it, being a commercial CFO and a person who's actually managed successfully for many years a business turning over 80 million, that's another story. I understand business. I'm not just a CFO sitting behind a spreadsheet. You know those movies, Alan, where you're sitting over the computer, hiding from people. I understand business, which makes me a more powerful ally within a business. It's not just sitting there like a geek. Those days have gone. You have to understand business, because part of a CFO's role is to challenge the shareholders and the senior management team to make them better. So for a CFO to be able to do that properly and respectfully, you do need to know what you're talking about. And that's where, I'm not afraid to step in and say I do bring that to the table, only because I've had a huge amount of experience, and it's what I love to do. I love the small to medium business area. And so if you're just say for, one of your viewers, if you're a trade service business out there, you've hit the 10 million, you're rocking along, and you've got your eye on 20. Ellen, I would say, and I've seen this over and over again, and it's human nature. Okay, the first thing is big jump from 10 to 20. That's an area now, you've already done what a lot of businesses can't do, is get to 10 million. Getting to 20, you have to change what you're doing. Or I won't say you won't get there, but you will take much longer to get there, and you probably won't get there very profitably unless you really assess what you're doing at the moment. And that's probably the biggest thing that I'd like to talk about and focus on today, is that awareness, because again, we go back to, if we've got a trade service business with really good operational shareholders and they're focusing on their sales, Alan, and getting their operational team sorted, so they're training their techies. I'm assuming at that 10 million mark, they're already they're aware that they have to do that. But that's great. That's fantastic. That's going to support them to get to the 20 and then get to the 50. But what happens is, because they are operationally focused and that is what they know, it is very commonplace that the financial and administrative side of the business is left, how will I put it, unloved.
I might just jump in. You've thrown a lot at me and our listeners, but I probably want to get the conversation. Maybe probably very, very few businesses in the service industry get to 10 million. So, and I look at all the companies I'm currently working with, and
Yes.
it's the number of businesses that are at 10 million or above is very, very small. It's probably just with my, the 40 companies I work with within the US and Australia, it's it's probably 5% of them are above 10 mil, maybe
Right.
a little
Yes.
bit more. So there's nothing wrong with a $1 million business that wants to be a $10 million business. And I'd like to throw maybe
Yes.
some financial tips at those companies that want to be at 10 million. I think
Yeah.
I grew from 1 million to 10 million fairly quickly. 10
Yes.
million to 20 million was, we got stuck when the company got to about 50, 60 staff, getting the right leaders in place via, because we followed the EOS model, getting the right integrator. I realized that I wasn't a good integrator. I managed to get the business to 15 mil annually, but getting it to 30 mil, which was our next goal, was a big challenge.
Yes.
And we had in-house, we had lots of bookkeepers, probably more than we needed, but that was advice given to me from a mentor who grew his business to 100 mil, 200 mil, said have more bookkeepers than you need. I don't know if that's applicable with your way forward, but I'd like to give some tips, some value to some of the smaller companies, the majority of companies
Sure.
out there that say, I'd love to have a $10 million business. What's the key things that we need to focus on, Karen?
Yeah, gee, that's a big question, Alan. Okay, so the first thing is know that you can't do it all. If you and any business that's got their eye on the ball, that have big goals, you have to know that you can't do it all. And so at the moment in the marketplace, there are some very good outsourcing support that you can bring into your business for project work. So what I would suggest is identifying what you do really well within your business. Focus on what you know is really working, where your skills will help the business scale. And then identify the areas where you are sitting there thinking, well, I know this is not what I do. I don't really know where to start. And of course, the financial side of that is generally one of the most important places. So for me, there's a mix. I would suggest that any business from the beginning, Alan, again, bringing a full-time finance team into a business is not advisable until a certain point. There's no need to anymore. You can outsource very capable people as long as you do your due diligence to come in with a view of making sure that you are seeing your numbers correctly, that you are looking at really relevant, informative management reporting. Now, there's two words that I'd like every business owner to imprint into their brain is management accounting. Management accounting is what every business needs to be successful. If you do not have appropriate reporting that falls under that umbrella, and it's easy to Google, you really are going to be pushing everything uphill. So that management accounting, that's all your budgets, that's all your monthly reporting, that's your forecasting. So that's actually reporting that's going to show you what the business is doing. So how you traded in that particular month, what you're looking at on your profit and loss will reflect only the expenses that the business has incurred in that month. So get your head around that, and then have also in your finance team, which like margin maximizers, we're a virtual service that is affordable for the experience and skill that you're getting. So somewhere in your finance team that can do, appropriate costing models for you, pricing models. Margin max, we understand flat rate pricing. We understand, hours and materials. We understand inventories. We understand having your trucks, each truck and each techie as as a mini profit center within your business. All these things, if you can build that over time as you're going and growing and you have the resources to do it, that's your path to 10 million. So that's the finance side. We can help with that. And I love to have a chat, Ellen, as you probably know. So I'm always up for a chat with no obligation. I'm a mentor with the Queensland government for small business. So I do a lot of pro bono work. I'm very happy to talk to people about their business just because I can. So let's park the finance for now, because that's a big conversation, but it's a really important one. So be confident with your numbers, so you know you're growing profitably. You know, we bang on about growth, Ellen, and I get really annoyed with finance people who jump on and go, "Oh yeah, growth," or business consultants. But there's a word that needs to lead the word growth, and that's profitable, because you can grow yourself into the poorhouse. So so profitable growth. Another thing which I'm sure you'll agree, Ellen, and as a CFO, I don't just sit with finance. I sit as a guardian for the business that I am engaged by. So I actually have professional fiduciary duties, lawful duties that require me to act as a guardian to the shareholders and to the business and to protect the business. And with that protection means to make the business as healthy as possible. So I can certainly partner with, people who are have at least probably $1 million to $2 million turnover at the moment, and they've got the eye on the ball of a 10 million turnover, to make sure their governances are right, that their profitability is how it should be. And so I also am a very big believer in workplace culture, and we all know that in all industries in Australia, particularly the blue-collar area, the human resources factor is a pain. It's very painful. So it's not too early for any business to really focus on their HR framework. And, again, people might be going, "Oh, but you're a chief financial controller. Why are you talking about HR?" I am all over the business. That is the definition of a chief financial officer, is that I am all over the supply chain of the business, Alan. And so finances, HR, the culture that you have within your organisation is really important. And operational people, your managers, and this is where I have a trade service client at the moment, going with a bullet. Great company. I love them to death. And he's already identified that the people he's bringing up into management need training. They're great operational people, but they need management skills. And part of that management skills is knowing numbers and knowing how to read financial reports. So you picked a really big subject there, Alan.
I just want to jump in and say, based on your comment, how easy would business be if we didn't have staff and customers? Wouldn't it be? It would be so much easier. But we're in the people business, Karen, and we have to understand that we've got our internal customers, our staff. Very important to look after them. And you look after your internal customers, they'll look after your actual customers. So we both work in, and I just wanted to mention to everyone listening in is that your hubby Brent has been on the podcast a couple of times now. Some of my favorite podcasts, because we both are avid marketers, and Brent
Yes.
actually worked with me for quite a few years in my companies, and a
And he
valuable
loved it,
asset to
Alan.
anyone that works with Brent. He is an amazing mentor for anyone that wants to grow their business. And I know that we have clients that we both work with, and I can't provide a skill set such as you do, Karen, because my skill is, even though I tell everyone I work with, you got to know your numbers, and I want to
Yes.
morph into what's some of the key numbers we need to look at. But I have always recommended everyone I work with from $1 million to 10 million to 20 million is just you got to know those key numbers. Now, gross
Yes.
margin is ever so important for a service company. Most service companies think that they can put 30% markup and that'll solve all problems. No, that fucking won't. That
No.
is the biggest recipe for disaster. If you and some say, oh, well, I'm doing 50% gross margin. I could friggin' care less, because your costs your overhead might be at 48%. So until you understand what your overhead of your business, what you pay yourself, what your marketing is, and all the indirect costs, how can you know what a good gross margin is? So we might jump into that. What are some of the key numbers? And I mean, we won't have time to list them all, Karen, but
Yes.
so where would a smaller contractor that wants to be at 10 million, and just by the way, I've got a new client that I'm working with in Sydney, and he's a small operation. He's less than $1 million.
Yes.
I have dedicated myself to work with him to get him to 10 million within 3 years. We may do it quicker, but and I know that taking the advice from yourself and Brent and myself, that we'll get him there. And there's massive opportunity in the market at the moment, because a lot of contractors are thinking, the phone's not ringing. You probably don't need most of the calls you get anyway. So key numbers to look for, Karen.
Well, your bookable hours, Alan, is the first thing that I would say. So, and I mean, for me personally, as a finance person, I do like the flat rate pricing. But there's all different ways of and different softwares coming out too, I guess, at the moment. Having a job scheduling system is. Let's start there. Having a really good job scheduling system is imperative. You cannot scale a trade service business without one. So let's start with that. And then your bookable hourly rate. What is that? It's going to be different from Sydney. I don't know, Ellen, you know better than anyone. So what's your 4 hours out of 8 there, or
billable efficiency? Yeah, most companies, the average in the industry is below 40%. Although I do work with some of the most profitable, actually the most profitable company I work with in the US is doing a 31% net cash flow. He runs at a better than 90% efficiency. He uses flat rate pricing, but via margin pricing, which I've been teaching for years. Pricing off the margin, you can be more competitive, you can be more accurate. But most companies, net profit wise, they're not at 10%. I think the industry average would be less than 5%, but gross margin is important as long as you know your expenses. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. So your gross margin area, absolutely. So you've got your materials in there, you've got your direct labours, you've got anything at all that contributes to providing the services that you might serve to your clients. I would say to you that some businesses, and it's common from industry to industry, don't even have their gross margin area set up properly, Alan. They don't have all the relevant direct costs in it. So, yeah, look, you've obviously seen it. I've looked into businesses and go, oh yeah, we've got a gross margin that's better than the industry rate, and I'm thinking, well, I'm looking at your cash flow here. No, let me have a look at what you're doing, and I find a heap of their gross margin costs are actually sitting in their overheads. So, yeah, making sure you're picking up every cost in your gross margin area. So, and then we'll go, well, what are the two big effects with trade services from a cost perspective? And we all know what they are: materials and labour. Okay. And inventory. Oh my goodness, Alan, I could write a book on that one. Inventory management, or lack thereof, and transparency into what you're doing in inventory can cost you hundreds of thousands of profit. Full stop. Absolutely. Trade service business at the moment, I'm doing an exercise with their inventory pricing, and equally important, the inventory management. Around 500,000 margin sitting in there at the moment, which we'll pull back into the business. And the beauty of that, Alan, is when margin maximizers find margin leakage, and trust me, listeners, viewers, there will be margin leakage. I can bet on it. The beautiful knock-on effect to that is it actually fixes the process. So your business becomes more efficient in perpetuity. So that margin that you're bringing in on your current revenue is there forever, and it will increase as your revenue increases. So it's absolutely a great scenario. That's why I focus on margin improvement, and knowing your numbers is definitely it's the way to Pandora. Because when you bring margin back into the business, or you control its leakage, because sometimes you can't cultivate all of it, but you can control what's happening, is that you're making your framework of your business much better, and you write, an SOP around it, so you know that it's there, and you'll enjoy that margin in perpetuity. So your gross margin holds all manner of things. You've got to be real about your direct labour to your job. If you have different services, you must know your profitability on all those services, because you might be driving a service. If you've got, say, 3 services where, the 3 of them might kind of evenly share the revenue of the business. If you don't know each one of your profit centers' performance, you could well be driving a service that's not very profitable. And you might have a service there that you think, I don't really like doing that. Doing it, you might find that it's highly profitable, but you don't know unless you have access to that. So inventory management, understanding your service, the services you provide, their performance, picking up all your direct labour in an accurate fashion, and anything else that should be sitting in your gross margin should be in there. And like you said, then dropping down into your fixed costs and variable costs. Run as lean. I come from a best practice lean environment, so I'm all about a business practicing as lean as they can without affecting the integrity of their service.
I'd like to jump in just on a couple of things on that. The first area that I had confusion was when I started working with my American friends let's call it 2005. So what's that, 19 years ago? They structured their chart of accounts, P&L slightly different. So certain things in the US are above the line, And so it's different. I tend to agree with the way the Americans are set up, and we kept it like, for us, direct cost was direct labor, which is the biggest expense in a business. For a service business. Materials, cogs, hire equipment, anything that was used to produce a sale. Obviously, commissions, bonuses, and then some of the confusion that I see with the companies I work, the owner is actually out in the field generating sales, and actually working as a direct labor, where they put themselves in as an indirect. Well, you gotta get that. You got to get everything right, because the term that I used working with Ruth King many years ago was, you got to watch out for financial fruit salads. So the way that you report has to be consistent from one month to another. Most companies, they look at their P&L at the end of the month, which they usually get fucking 2 weeks after, and go, wow, we made all this money. But what they haven't done is they've got some fruit salad going on where they haven't got all the costs, and then the next month it's a massive loss. So they're playing with that. So look, I think
that's right.
Getting things. We trialed. One of the things we trialed at our companies was weekly P&Ls. I'm not telling everyone to go and do it, but one thing that I know, if you're watching your sales and costs and everything on a weekly basis, it gives you the most accurate reporting. But there's a bit of work, and that's probably an area that you may be able to assist. But I believe weekly pricing, you got 13 weeks in a quarter instead of yearly planning, you do quarterly planning. And if you change to that model, you'll be more accurate with everything you do. So, but you also touched on the importance of departmentalization, where you've got, you got a plumbing division, you've got a drain division, you've got a hot water division. They all have different structures. So, an air conditioning division is very similar to a water heater division, because you've got a higher material cost. And if you don't mark the materials correctly, thinking, well, I'll just put 30% on top of that. No, that's giving you about a 20% fucking gross margin. So when you realize that the higher material cost, if you want a 50% gross margin, it's a real easy calculation. You double the price. But a lot of contracts, I can't. I paid $10,000 for the air conditioning system. I couldn't possibly sell it for 20. Well, how can you not? It's like, you want a 50% gross margin. You got these costs that don't give a stuff about your, what you mark up. And look, there's just little things like, well, actually not little things at all, big things. But the biggest area of focus and the biggest area of non-profit, far ahead of anything else, is labor, direct labor, and efficiencies affect profitability more than anything, period.
Absolutely. Yeah. So you and I speak the same language, and the COGS, the American style COGS, that is what we support at Margin Maximizers. Absolutely. And managing that labor, and it absolutely is, because just a little snippet with regards to this exercise I'm doing at the moment with the team for inventory management for this business, the labor component, the inefficiencies of how the business had got into a bad habit of how they were accessing the materials throughout the workday, there's a $250,000 profit leakage just in the management of the materials, which we can harvest back into the business, let alone the pricing, which we've done very well on that as well. So it is labor is king, and the management of that, and being able to know your numbers, but also having that structure, Alan, in the business with your SOPs. I'm a real big believer in tools. Again, I'm a CFO talking about toolbox talks. I think they're hugely important. They're great to educate your culture. And as you say, the culture is out there delivering to your clients. Make them happy, give them knowledge, make them feel confident and empowered, and that they are accomplish something every day. These are the things, along with what we've talked about, which I feel really passionate about as a CFO.
Love it. The other thing too is it's there's not many companies that are really transparent with their numbers, and we used to spend a fair bit of time educating our team on not giving them the full P&L, because they wouldn't. 99% of your staff won't understand it anyway. But
No.
giving them, showing them, and like I've done a pie chart example where I show them where the costs of the business go. For $100 job, you say 25%, $25 goes to labor, 10% to money, and you show them where it goes, so they don't think that, and some of our staff think, well, I've just done $1,000 job, and and I've spent an hour, so he's paid me, let's call it $50, and the boss has just made $950 off me. You don't need that type of thinking. So it's important to educate your team to a certain degree on where that money goes. When you do that, they go, oh, okay, now I understand why my boss charges X per hour, where if I was out working for myself, I would be charging a lot less. So, Karen, look, this has been fantastic. I'm going to get all of your details to share with our listeners. One thing I just want to say is I really love yours and Brent's lifestyle. You run a business. Well, I've modeled my lifestyle on a very similar, my coaching business now. It doesn't matter where I am in the world. I could be in Houston, where I've been for a couple of years. I can be in Sydney. At the moment, I'm in Brisbane or Sunshine Coast. But I looked at you and Brent, your lifestyle, where you travel. You can be anywhere in the world. You got your laptop, as long as you got an internet connection, you can work. And that's a bit harder to do with a service company. But I think since 2020, COVID has opened up the doors for more business owners to utilize external help, like CFOs, like marketing.
Good point.
And I work with some really, really dynamic companies in the US where the owner of the business can competently and safely run his business from anywhere, as long as he can log in, and he's got good people in place that run the day-to-day, the operations, as long as he can log in and see the key metrics, the sales, the growth, the margin, everything, he can then run his business remotely. So that's the direction that I would recommend everyone to go. So, but look, I always ask everyone that comes on the podcast, what's a really good book recommendation, something that you guys are reading it now that will add value to our listeners?
Well, Alan, my book's not going to be related to business. It's related to self. I have read way too many textbooks for many years with my professional services. It's a book called The Seat of My Soul. And it's of my soul. Yeah, Seat of My Soul. And it's a book about self-awareness, I guess.
I like it. And who's the author?
Yeah. I can't remember, to be honest with you. Can I shoot you the detail?
You can shoot me the details. We'll put that in the show notes. So
because it's really about going to a different plane. If you want to accomplish, not everyone. Okay, let's start here. Not everyone wants a bold life. Me, I was born bold. I love life. I love everything. I can't help but be everywhere, Alan. That's me. And I'm pretty sure that's you too. So we want to live our life that way. And this book, whether you want to live your life, quietly and peacefully with your family, it will help you and will enable you to do that to the best of your ability. Likewise, for people like you and I, it'll make us braver and bolder don't know if we need to be more bodacious. Hey, all those Betties, I'm liking that. But yeah, it's a very uplifting book.
And also, just on anyone that's watching the news, I don't watch news, but I do listen to what's going on in social media, because we use social well to market our business. But I also find that YouTube is not just a great marketing tool, but also it feeds you the information. But isn't it great that Julian Assange is finally free and back in Australia?
Hallelujah.
I mean,
yeah. Yes.
Yeah, and I have to say I wouldn't praise our current PM for much. I think he's anyway. I don't want to go off on a tangent. I don't think much of him, but I think he's the decision to work with, and I think everyone criticizes Donald Trump, but he's been talking about this for a long time about releasing Julian, and I feel that that the Biden administration has got in early and done it. So he would have been eventually given a pardon and released. But it's just great news. And I'm a massive advocate of freedom of speech and the American way. Look, I just love America and everything.
We
I
agree.
even love the politics. It's way more entertaining than watching the Kardashians or something like that.
Politics in Australia is so vanilla, Ellen. Whatever happened to the good old days when we had, we had Keating and Hawke, and we had, love them all. They're so love them.
Johnny Howard.
Them. They had, Johnny Howard, loved him to death. So. But now what do we have? We have vanilla.
Well, anyway. Let's not go there, Karen. But anyway, I want to thank you for an amazing podcast. And say hi to that lovely man of yours, Brent. I'm sure we'll connect soon enough. So thanks everyone for joining us. And I'm gonna stop talking and just let you let everyone that's listening in what's the best way to connect with you, Karen?
Yeah, thanks, Alan. And I really enjoyed it. Thank you. So Margin Maximizers is our business's name. Just type it out. We've got a website launched. Find myself on LinkedIn on my professional page. It's not a problem. And you can message me on LinkedIn or book a calendar appointment. And I'd love to chat. Like I said, just give me a call and see if we'd be the right fit.
Love it. Well, thank you very much. Thank you for everyone for joining in, and we'll catch up with you guys real soon.
Thanks, Cheers. Alan.